Bawumia is now waving the flag on behalf of the NPP into the 2024 elections. There are concerns that the party needs to unite for that breaking the 8th agenda to happen. How is the party going about it?
Tony, thank you very much, and good morning to your listeners. The party started that process, I think, the very night of his declaration, and outdooring as the flag bearer of our party. The show of support by the other 3 aspirants who contested him, indicating clearly that they would stand with him, they would stand behind him to prosecute the 2024 campaign, is the beginning, and the process of unity began that night. So the party, right after that exercise, has all rallied behind the flag bearer, His Excellency Dr. Bawumia, to lead the NPP to victory in the 2024 general elections.
There are 9 people who contested the vice president. And at some point they felt that the system had been skewed in the interest of Dr. Bawumia. Are we bringing them to the fold as well? Are we aligning everybody so that the story is one?
The story is always one, and the story must be one. The only point where you see what division you saw is because it's election. And in the nature of things, it requires that people support different people, the very beauty of democracy. But right after that contest is over, especially the internal contest, all the parts dissolve into one. And that's where we are. The individuals that you spoke about, by design as members of our party, understands that the party is supreme. The party interest is what we're all canvassing. It is not Dr. Ahiagbah Barumia's interest that we're pursuing in 2024. We're pursuing the party's interest, and he is representing the party's interest to lead this country as the president. So it is inherently the party's interest, and every member of the party must fall in line in the pursuit of that interest.
Now, Honorable Kennedy Ahiagbah, who now says he will support the vice president in his quest to become president of the country in 2025, has had cause to say that even if Dr. Bawumia is elected, he is the worst candidate to ever face John Mahama. How does the NPP propose to rewrite this narrative that has sunk deep, especially with 71,000 people who aligned with Kennedy Ahiagbah?
Well, so 2 things. Let me start from the last point you made about 71,000 people aligning with Honorable Kennedy Ahiagbah. All those 71 people are members of the New Patriotic Party who understands that they cannot go against the interest of the party, which is the resolution that we all came to say Dr. Ahiagbah Bawumia is our candidate. By definition, all those 71 people and the entire delegate caucus and the entire membership of the party understand by our constitution to fall in line and support the candidate. So that is a given. The campaign discussions and utterances of candidates, in the nature of things, is in the heat of the moment, people say things to give themselves advantage. And that is the nature of democracy. But you know, and I know, the record of His Excellency Dr. Bawumia, the best performing vice president of this Fourth Republic and at any time in the history of this country. We have not seen a vice president who has been so visible, front and center, and trying to do all he can to support his president. And so the record of His Excellency Dr. Ahiagbah Bawumia is self-evident. And I will tell you without any shred of doubt that whatever commentary were made during the campaign were just that. They were campaign talk and nothing to quibble about. in terms of the performance and the capacity of the vice president. He's a competent technocrat who will be able to get things done for this country.
In terms of competence and the work that Dr. Bawumia has done, he is the head of the economic management team as it stands now. And since 2017, people have had questions about the economy. People have said that will he ever pause to answer the 170 questions that he put to Vice President Ms. Arthur? And if he does answer those questions, maybe we'll find a way out of this economic maze in which we find ourselves. Would he ever pause to do that?
Well, I think that the Vice President has been doing that. And necessarily not to answer those questions, but to deal with the challenges that the economy faces. You know, when I hear people make these comments as though that the Vice President is not talking about the economy, I worry. Because they say that it's not doing digitalization, which digitalization, in that view, is not economy, but that is front and center the economy. You see, the situation in our country with the economy, really, you don't have to support the NPP or oppose the NPP to realize that we're in difficult times. The party, the president, national chairman, the general secretary, at different times have acknowledged where we are. I have acknowledged that we're in difficult times. But there's a reason why we are here. And that's the difficulty that sometimes I am pained that the media is not living to the expectation we have for it. To say that, provide a platform to inform the citizenry. And so then we, the citizenry, then make a decision on the information you are presented. The point I'm making, Johnny, is that in 2017, 2018, 2019, this economy was growing. In 2019, Ghana's economy was rated among other economies as one of the best performing economies.
Under an extended IMF program.
And in 2019, when we had that record, Bawumia, His Excellency, was still the Vice President and head of the economic management team as you would like us to have it today. The economy was doing very well on all fronts. Now, something happened, Johnny. Something happened. And what happened has been catastrophic, has left a big dent. And that dent is what we are dealing with, Johnny. When we're all kids, you know, there are instances where you sustain an injury or you have a wound, it will die. The wound, you heal it, it will die. But many, many years after that, you still see the scar there. The scars of COVID-19 remain. The economy is reeling under the pains of that. And then you manage to pull back from the performance of 2020 and you are crossing into 2021, then things are coming together. And then suddenly you hit another headwind, which in the nature of things affected all economies across the world, much like COVID-19. Now this time, creating cost of living crisis, energy costs skyrocketing. I'm talking about the Russia-Ukraine war. Then major economies across this world, the United States, typically seeking to respond to the cost of living crisis, the inflation in its own country, by tightening its monetary policy.
Do you think that Dr. Bawumia, as head of the economic management team, has managed our debt and expenditure very well?
Johnny, it's a narrative. They are all interrelated. But the key avenue of influence is what we're trying to establish.
But we have borrowed more and spent more. There have been calls from Professor Quarty, Professor Bokpin, Professor Gachi, Professor Lord Mensah, all the professors, Kwame Pienim, everybody cut down on the size of the government. Does he not have a word with the president to say, this is what I think as an economist? Because the president is not an economist. And the president has said that he needed his brains to govern. Is he supporting the president in that regard to govern?
Really, if you say the president is not an economist, and so therefore he must necessarily depend or just be instructed to take that, I think that we're simplifying
the president said that himself to school children
that does not
2 weeks
mean
ago.
That he doesn't understand economics.
Well, he said that himself 2 weeks ago, that he needed Dr. Bawumia to use his brains to rule.
So, Johnny,
to govern.
I guess the point I'm trying to make is let's not reduce the issue to that level. But you see, the essential.
But I'm not reducing it, Richard. That's what the president told school children in primary school. So they will grow with that knowledge.
Can we move on?
Go ahead, please.
The point I want to make to you is that yes, professors, staff professors, this and all of that. The project this government undertook for this country before COVID now has been very ambitious. Now, when you ask people who says that we have borrowed too much, they don't pause to say we have done also so much, right? Just last time when the numbers came, till now, we spent in excess of about 114 billion on education. That's money that has been poured into this economy to build a certain capacity for the economy, whose results today, Johnny, you may not see readily, but I'll give you time. The fruits of that investment will materialize. Okay, so let's not just be counting and saying these things that we borrowed too much. Whatever money has been borrowed, it's been tied to a project. Okay, but the point I want to make to you why we are where we are today, Johnny, is because of a global effect that Ghana suffered. And out of that, we are building back. So now, the proper framing of the question to allow us to have a constructive conversation is to say, okay, how are you building out of the challenge so that we can tell you that this is our program? And then we can then have the opposing side tell you what their proposition would be, which is different from ours, then we can accept. But if we don't do that, and you're just saying that he's head of economic management team, and so then
Richard,
here without reference to what brought the economy here, then Johnny, you will be distorting the conversation.
Richard, you know the government, and in fact, even the president has acknowledged that we find ourselves in an economic quagmire. What the government and elements of the government and the party have failed to do is to say, this is our contribution to the quagmire in which we find ourselves. Because truthfully, we have raised more money, we have borrowed more, we have taxed the people even much more, and in terms of expenditure, we have done much more. But the government is reluctant to say, this is my portion of the blame in where we find ourselves. It's either Russia, Ukraine, COVID, the NDC, and the citizens of Ghana who are not trying to pay their taxes, but never the government. Why is that tone?
Sorry, I think this, you see, this question we just asked lends itself to one where I would tell you that's not true. And it promotes argument and debate rather than solution. Do you understand? What are you suggesting? That the government has intentionally done what? What would you think the government has done wrong, Johnny?
Richard, maybe I rephrase. If I give you ingredients to cook jollof for me, I give you rice, I give you oil, I give you salt, tomatoes, all the ingredients you need. I give you a gas stove, whatever you need. And then you cook the jollof and the jollof gets burnt. You cannot say where we find the burnt jollof, but you can also tell me that, oh, I was in charge of cooking the jollof and the jollof got burnt under my watch. And so I take a portion of it. You can't blame everything else, the ingredients, the gas stove, everything else, and take yourself as the chef out of the equation. That's what the government is doing.
No. You see, so the acknowledgements that I have told you about, that the president, the leadership of the party, myself at some point have made these clear admissions. It's responsibility. Okay? It's responsibility that, yes, this thing has happened under us. But these were the factors, because you need to know the problem in order to solve it, right? It's not just as simple as government say, oh, we have messed up the economy. What did you do to mess it up, and how are you going to fix that? Okay, we must. If I admit to you that, Johnny, I have messed something up, I need to tell you where I messed it up. And so how am I going to fix what I messed up? So, but then there is no visible thing that the government has done to intentionally mess up the economy. What has happened to mess up the economy is what we're saying. And I'm saying that frame the question so we can tell you what is it we are doing to build back. Then we can discuss that. Then we ask our opposing party to say that what are you going to do? Is what they are saying reasonable? And let's resolve the problem. If not, what your proposition is to that problem. And if we're not doing that, we'll be going around circles and debating every morning the same thing, every morning the same thing for years, and we'll not come to a solution. That's what we have been doing.
I see.
That's what we have been doing.
Tell me.
And I think that's most unfortunate.
Tell me.
Johnny, if you agree with me, and you and I will be discussing this for a long time, in 2017, when the economy was doing good, 18 when the economy was doing good, 19 when it was doing good, right? In 2020, we know what happened.
But between 2017, Richard,
GDP performance dropped to 0.4%.
Richard,
what was that?
Richard, between 2017 and 2019, we were on an extended IMF program. Fact.
Okay, and what has that got to do with the performance?
So I'm saying that you still had, it's just like you say you're a master driver, but you're riding through town with a motorcade and strobe lights. You can't call yourself a master driver if you are not, if the way is being paved for you to run through. Similar thing to what we're doing now. I mean, we are under an IMF program, yes? No,
Johnny. So when the economy was in a slide, okay, in 2014, when NDC borrowed about 50% of the debt stock we had, and then hit the economy, and in 2015 they had to go to IMF. They were in IMF in 2015. Is that not the case?
It's the case.
The economy changed.
But have you not borrowed more than the NDC and all the other governments put together? You have borrowed more than all of them put together. So don't talk about borrowing.
That is not the consequential question to raise. Okay? Because look, if we are making the issue about borrowing, right? And that is a measure that the government had to take in order to advance a certain view of development. It is not necessarily bad because you have ways to claw back that's borrowing. One, if you grow the economy, you'll then be able to get revenue to be able to deal with that. And that's how come you see countries like the United States, Japan, their deficit is so huge. But then these countries are performing. It is about your view of development, what your policy view is. If you and I were having a conversation today, Johnny, constructively, you tell me what NDC's strategy to develop this country is. I can tell you one plank of policy that when pursued by the New Patriotic Party and supported by Ghana, in the next 10 years, Ghana will achieve a certain production capacity that will give us room to increase our exports, generate foreign exchange income for our country, and then create employment for our young people. And that is the industrialization policy of this government.
But the unemployment gap keeps widening. Richard, the unemployment gap keeps widening. The unemployment gap keeps widening. Wait, Richard.
To NPP's policy to industrialize, the NDC cannot give you a comparable policy that you can assess independently and say that this thing, when done for the next 10 years sustainably, would bring the kind of production that we need to then be able to move from taxation.
What do you have to show for job creation? The unemployment gap is at 14%. Your young people are jobless.
You weren't paying attention, right?
Go ahead.
What I'm telling you is this, that to all the problems we have, you must find a solution. So yes, suffice to say that maybe there's need for employment creation and all of that. That is the problem. But what is important for you to ask your government is what is the solution? What are are you doing about it? What is your response? And now, John, your responsibility as a conduit to inform the citizenship, the citizenry, is this, that what government says is going to do about the problem of unemployment is not tenable. Because when we look at the one district, one factory project and policy that the government wants to pursue, it cannot create jobs. But Johnny, you can't say that. As you and I speak now, a one district, one factory project that was commenced in 2017, the Ekunsi fruit juice factory, today is exporting to the United States of America and is in 500 shops.
I see. Richard, my final question to you. We have to talk about.
Johnny, 1 second. If you do that for the next 16 years, you would have created enough Ekunsi juice factories that would employ that many people. I'm telling you that the problem you have is okay that you have problem because life is full of problems. But what is important for you to demonstrate for the people who are following you is that I have the solution. I have the solution that can solve the problem if we work together.
Richard, my final question to you.
We can overcome the problem, and that's where we must be as a country, Johnny.
My final question to you. Those 170 questions that Dr. Bawumia asked Vice President Mr. Arthur, are they still relevant today?
Those questions are relevant, and those questions were being solved up until the rude interruption of COVID-19 and exacerbated by Russia-Ukraine war. But we are building back. We are building back. A catastrophic event took us off balance. And that event, we are building back to get on the mainstream. Now today, the story is changing, Johnny. The story is changing. The economy is coming back. Activity is stabilizing. Inflation is dropping. Employment will start coming out for our young people. Recently, you heard the Ministry for Agric and YEA has collaborated to create 2,000 well-paying agriculture-based jobs. That will trigger, employment in the space directly 200,000 and other resulting employment opportunities that will come on the back of that. I'm telling you that, Johnny, this government has a solution. But for COVID and Russia-Ukraine war, the story of our country is different. You know that in 2019, when we were tipped as one of the fastest growing economies in the world, it was not by accident. It was by the doing of a government, and that government still is in power. That government is seeking to continue in 2025 to deliver what is started.
Richard, does it surprise you? Does it surprise you that even Russia and Ukraine, who are fighting, their citizens are not going through the mess that we're going through? Does it surprise you?
Well,
that you're making a big excuse out of it, but even the citizens of Russia and Ukraine, they are not suffering as much as we are suffering.
But the Ghana and Russia and Ukraine are not on the same economic footing.
But you are crying more than the bereaved.
No, so Johnny, we need to adjust for this.
Go ahead.
Right? Ours is a developing economy, right? You cannot compare us to Russia. And that conversation is a total comparison of between apples and oranges. Let's not do that. The key thing is that let's look at our problems where we can compare. Let's make sure it's like for like and not this kind of...
But the people who are fighting are not suffering as much as those of us who are far away from the people who are fighting. They are comfortable. They are not complaining as much as we are complaining. Why are we making an excuse out of everything? Just COVID, Russia, Ukraine, COVID, Russia, Ukraine.
The United States of America, the United Kingdom, they are not Russia, they are not Ukraine, but the impact of the Russia-Ukraine war is felt in UK, where the workers are demonstrating day and night for cost of living adjustment. In America, when they have to increase their monetary policy rate, when they do that, it affects capital or investment and production is affected when you increase your monetary policy because then capital becomes expensive. So investment in production is stalled. But America has to do it because they have to do that to respond to the problem of Russia-Ukraine. So these are impacts that they are feeling. We are feeling the same impact. Okay. But the only thing is that our economy is tied so much to the global economy. So anything to do with the dollar affects us, and that's the problem, right? So it's not a thing that we
are we talking about the same dollar that was arrested by Dr. Bawumia, which he was given to IGP Apietu?
Sorry?
Are we talking about the same dollar which was arrested and the key to that locker was given to IGP Apito? Are we talking about the same dollar?
Yes. You're talking about the same city, yes.
I see. Okay. Richard Ahiagbah, thank you very much for your time.
Let me just give you a small analogy before you go.
Quickly.
It doesn't matter how healthy you are. If there is a pandemic, you must protect yourself. So it doesn't matter how resolute our economy was. When the pandemic came, all of us were exposed to it. Okay? And the impact of that doesn't matter how healthy you are. If you are reckless or if you have not protected yourself, well, you'll be exposed to it. So the idea of the CD having been strong and therefore Dr. Bawumia saying that it's been arrested and the key given to the IGP.
I hear you.
Does not immune you from subsequent policy from America to be able to protect its own home front on your city. And that's really what you need to accommodate for when you're making this conversation.
I thank you very much for your time, Richard Ahiagbah. He is director of... Thank you. He is director of communications for the NPP. I'm sure you can come in studio one of these days so we can have a full hour of conversation. But I'm grateful for your time, Richard Ahiagbah. He is director of communications for the NPP, and he joined me here in studio. Listen.
It is quite clear. It is quite clear that beyond all of this, I am surprised that we are saying that we shouldn't discuss conflict of interest. Mr. Speaker, is it not true that he owns Data Bank? Is it not true that Data Bank is the one who is a transaction advisor and a book runner borrowing for government? Is it not true that Data Bank is paid fees that he gets dividends from? It is true. And what is it about conflict of interest that we should not be discussed here? Mr. Speaker, is it the only financial institution in Ghana? Why is it that before he became a finance minister, Data Bank was not a book runner? Why is it that suddenly you are everywhere, that bank? Why is it that now Data Bank Enterprise Group, they are now the only financial institution that are taking every business? And you are saying that we cannot discuss conflict of interest. We need to set standards for our country. We need to ensure that Ghanaians take us serious and that when we are giving jobs, it is not to grow our businesses. It is to serve the people and to make sure that Ghana becomes the winner. Mr. Speaker, if anybody continues under this to contend that the finance minister should remain in government, then we must as well dissolve parliament and dissolve government as well. Because we are failing our people, we are failing the people out there who voted for us, and we are failing the people that we are supposed to serve. You cannot be serving yourself, you must serve the nation, and you have failed. It's time to say, Ghana, you gave me an opportunity to serve you. I have served you to the best of my ability. My ability is not good enough. Bring in somebody else to do the work. Why are you still sitting there? We gave you the job. We said we don't know you again. Is it for us to serve us? Is it fair for you to serve us? So please, the finance minister must do the honorable thing and leave that office and give us an opportunity. Thank you very much.
Isaac Adongo there. We will talk about women premier in a bit, but first, we will get into a conversation with the Planned Parenthood Association of Ghana. Here we go. Well, it's 20 minutes after 9 here on 3FM 92.7, and we go straight into our conversation now with the Planned Parenthood Association of Ghana. Here's what we're talking about.